He walked into Miller's BBQ in Clearwater, Texas, at 11:45 on a Saturday morning, the first customer through the door. And for the next hour and 20 minutes, he watched 17 people who arrived after him get seated, get served, get their brisket and ribs, while he sat at a corner table, completely ignored because someone had seen the pride flag sticker on his truck and decided he did undeserved to eat. His name was Austin Brennan. He was 29 years old, and what happened in that restaurant on Highway 87 taught him that in small-town Texas, being American does unprotect you if the people in power decide you read the wrong kind of American, and sometimes the fight for basic dignity happens in places as ordinary as a barbecue joint on a Saturday afternoon. Austin had grown up in Houston, moved to Clearwater for a job at a natural gas company after college. Been there 3 years working as a pipeline engineer, making decent money, $72,000 a year, enough to buy a small house and a truck and live comfortably. Clearwater was typical West Texas, population 6,000. Oil and gas money, conservative values. Friday night football was religion, and actual religion was everywhere. Austin was openly gay, had a boyfriend named Marco, who worked as a paramedic, and they learned quickly that while nobody bothered them directly, there was a constant undercurrent of judgment, the kind of place where people smile to your face and talk behind your back. But Austin had dealt with that his whole life, figured if he minded his business and did his job, people would leave him alone. That Saturday, Austin was supposed to meet Marco for lunch at Miller's Barbecue, the most popular spot in town, been there since 1973, known for their mesquite-smoked brisket. Marco was running late. His shift at the hospital had gone long, so he texted Austin to go ahead and grab a table. Austin pulled up at 11:45, noticed the parking lot was mostly empty, figured they'd beat the lunch rush. He had a small rainbow flag sticker on the back window of his truck, nothing huge, just a Tench decal he'd gotten at Pride in Houston. He didn't think about it as he walked inside. The restaurant was classic Texas BBQ, wood paneling, checkered tablecloths. Photos of local football teams on the walls, the smell of smoke and meat that hits you the second you walk in. There was one waitress working, a woman, maybe mid-40s, named Donna, according to her name tag, and a man at the register who Austin assumed was the owner. Austin walked up to the host stand and said, "Table for 2, please." Donna looked at him, looked past him at the parking lot where his truck was visible through the window, and said, "Have a seat anywhere." Her tone was flat, cold. Austin noticed, but didn't think much of it, figured she was just tired or having a bad day. He chose a table in the corner with a good view of the door so he could see when Marco arrived. Sat down, looked at the menu, even though he knew what he wanted. Same thing he always got, brisket plate with beans and coleslaw. Donna walked past his table twice without acknowledging him. Austin figured she'd come take his drink order when she had a minute. Then another couple walked in, got seated 3 tables over. Donna was at their table within 30 seconds, taking drink orders. Austin watched, started to feel that familiar tension in his chest. The feeling you get when you know something's wrong, but can't quite prove it yet. 5 minutes later, an older man walked in alone, got seated at the bar. Donna brought him coffee immediately. Austin still hadn't been acknowledged. Key tried to make eye contact with Donna when she walked past. "Okay?" She looked right through him. Another family came in, parents and 2 kids, got seated and served drinks within minutes. Austin checked his phone. 11:58. He'd been there 13 minutes and hadn't even been asked what he wanted to drink. Marco texted saying he was 15 minutes out. Austin texted back, "Something weird is happening here. They're not serving me." Marco said, "What do you mean?" Austin said, "I'll explain when you get here." By noon, the restaurant was filling up. It's a Saturday lunch rush in a small Texas town. Families after church, guys in work boots and Carhartt jackets. The cross-section of Clearwater society. Every single person who walked in after Austin got seated and served before him. He watched Donna take orders, bring food, refill drinks, all while walking past his table, like he was invisible. The owner, a heavy-set man with a gray beard, stood at the register and watched the room. His eyes landed on Austin multiple times, but he never approached. Austin felt his face getting hot. That mix of embarrassment and anger that comes when you know you're being discriminated against, but calling it out means making a scene. He'd been raised to be polite, to not cause trouble, but he'd also been raised to stand up for himself. At 12:15, after sitting there for 30 minutes without service, Austin stood up and walked to the register. He said, "Excuse me, I've been here since before noon and haven't been helped." The owner looked at him and said, "Donna will get to you when she gets to you. We're busy." Austin said, "I was the first customer here. Everyone who came after me has been served." The owner said, "Well, maybe if you don't like the service, you should eat somewhere else." There it was. Not explicit enough to be prosecutable, but clear enough that everyone within earshot understood what was happening. Austin said, "Is this because I'm gay?" The owner said, "I don't know what you're talking about. I just suggested you might be happier elsewhere." Austin said, "I saw you looking at my truck, at the sticker." The owner said, "I don't pay attention to what people put on their vehicles. Now, if you're not going to order anything, I need you to clear the table for paying customers." Paying customers, like Austin's money, wasn't green. Austin stood there, every eye in the restaurant on him, and he had to make a choice. Walk out with his dignity or make this into something bigger. He pulled out his phone and opened the camera app. He said, "I'm documenting this. I've been here 35 minutes and you've refused to serve me while serving everyone who came after. That's discrimination." The owner said, "You can't record in here. This is private property." Austin said, "Texas is a one-party consent state. I can absolutely record." The owner's face turned red. He said, "You need to leave now or I'm calling the sheriff." That's when Marco walked in. He assessed the situation immediately, saw Austin standing at the register with his phone out, saw the owner's aggressive posture, saw every customer staring. Marco walked up and said, "What's going on?" Austin explained quickly. Marco looked at the owner and said, "So you're refusing to serve him because he's gay?" The owner said, "I'm refusing to serve him because he's causing a disturbance." Marco said he caused a disturbance by sitting quietly at a table for 35 minutes. The owner said, "I don't have to explain my business decisions to you. Both of you need to leave." They left. Austin was shaking with adrenaline and anger. Marco was calm but furious. They sat in Austin's truck and Austin played back the video he'd recorded. It's clear audio of the owner saying Austin should eat elsewhere. Clear statement about clearing the table for paying customers. Marco said, "We're reporting this." Austin's said to who? Marco said, "Texas Commission on Human Rights, and we're putting this on social media." Austin said, "That'll make it worse. Everyone in this town will know." Marco said, "Good. Let them know what happened in there isn't okay." Austin posted the video that night on Twitter with a simple caption, "Refused service at Miller SBBQ in Clearwater, Texas for being gay. Was first customer, last to be acknowledged." This is 2024. The video was watched 300 times in the first hour, mostly by people in Clearwater and surrounding areas. By Sunday morning, it had 20,000 views. By Monday, it was picked up by LGBTQ advocacy organizations. By Tuesday, it was on local news. The owner, identified as Dale Miller, gave a statement saying he'd never discriminated against anyone, that Austin had been disruptive, and he'd asked him to leave for that reason. The video proved otherwise. The story got bigger. National news picked it up. Miller's BBQ got review bombed online. 1-star ratings flooded their pages. People drove from hours away to protest outside the restaurant. The Texas Commission on Human Rights opened an investigation. Dale Miller hired a lawyer who claimed the whole thing was a misunderstanding. But more people came forward. Other LGBTQ folks who said they'd felt uncomfortable or unwelcome at Miller's, who'd gotten similar treatment but hadn't documented it. 3 months later, the investigation concluded. Texas doesn't have explicit statewide protections for LGBTQ people in public accommodations, but federal law and local ordinances can apply. Miller's BBQ wasn't shut down, but Dale Miller was fined and required to implement non-discrimination training. The fine was $2,000, barely a slap on the wrist, but the damage to his reputation was permanent. Business dropped 40%. Eventually sold the restaurant. Austin and Marco still live in Clearwater. Austin still works at the natural gas company. Occasional comments, but nothing like what happened at Miller's. Austin says the video was the right choice because it exposed what people do when they think nobody's watching. He also says it cost him something, a sense of safety, the ability to walk into places without wondering if he'll be refused service. He says that's the price of standing up. You win the battle, but you carry the scars. So here's my question for you, and I really want to hear your answer. If you were Austin, sitting in that restaurant being ignored while everyone else got served, would you have stayed and filmed it? Or would you have just left to avoid the confrontation? And if you've witnessed something like this happening to someone else, would you speak up or would you stay quiet because it's not your fight? Drop your comment below, because stories like this are still happening every day and we need to talk about them. And if this story made you feel something, if it made you angry or sad or determined to do better, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because we share real stories about real discrimination that's happening right now in America. Your voice matters. What would you have done? Tell us in the comments.